January 19, 1945, 11:43 p.m. Ordnance Test Range, Thuringia, Germany. A freezing wind swept over the snow-covered hills as a convoy of blacked-out trucks crept toward a fenced compound hidden deep in the forest. The moon hung low, soft light glinting off razor wire and the helmets of guards patrolling the perimeter. Inside the compound, floodlights flickered on and off, casting jagged shadows across the concrete bunkers. Something was happening tonight, something only a handful of men in the entire Reich knew about. Colonel Hans Kammler stepped out of the lead truck, boots crunching on gravel. His breath hung in the icy air like steam. Behind him, SS officers carried leather cases and rolled tubes containing classified blueprints. The compound commander jogged forward, saluting nervously. Everything is ready, Herr Obergruppenführer. Fuel lines calibrated. Chamber sealed. Cooling systems engaged. Kammler's eyes narrowed. And the prototype? The commander swallowed. Inside the test hall, the scientists insist it must be launched tonight. Kammler didn't bother replying. He strode toward a reinforced bunker whose steel doors were covered in frost. Two guards unlocked it with shaking hands. As the doors groaned open, a strange purple glow spilled into the snow. Inside, suspended from a cradle of steel arms, was the weapon, an object that looked like nothing else produced in World War II. German engineers called it Die Glocke. The bell, a massive, bell-shaped machine made of thick metal plates, covered in cables and ceramic tiles. Transparent quartz cylinders ran across its midsection, filled with a swirling, luminous liquid the scientists referred to only as Serum 525. The hum coming from the device wasn't mechanical. It was deeper, almost like the vibration of a storm trapped inside metal. Dr. Victor Schauberger, the eccentric Austrian scientist who had driven much of the project, paced anxiously beside the platform. His hair, unkempt and frost-dusted, seemed to vibrate with the machine. "You're late," he snapped at Kammler. "We lose stability every minute it sits idle. The rotation must begin now." Kammler ignored his agitation. "If this works, Doctor, the Führer wants results immediately." Schauberger turned sharply, eyes wild. "If it works, Herr Obergruppenführer, it will rewrite physics. It will rewrite war. Perhaps even rewrite time itself." Kammler stared at him, unimpressed. "Just show me what it does." A team of engineers scrambled to their stations. Red lights flashed. Alarm bells gave a dull warning as thick cables fed power into the device. The liquid inside the quartz tubes began to churn violently, glowing brighter with each rotation of the machine. The bell shuddered. The air inside the bunker grew heavy, thick, charged. Engineers clamped headphones over their ears as a low-frequency rumble vibrated the concrete floor. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered. Sparks crawled across the ceiling like tiny lightning bolts. The bell started to spin, slowly at first, then faster, and faster, and faster still. The liquid inside turned into a spiraling vortex of light. The metal frame shook violently as a strange distortion rippled through the air, bending shadows, bending reflections, bending reality itself. A young technician screamed, clutching his head as blood streamed from his nose. Another collapsed, convulsing. Instruments burst, needles snapping. A blue-white arc jumped from the machine to the metal railing, melting it instantly. Kammler staggered backward. "Shut it down! Shut it down!" Schauberger grabbed his arm, shouting over the rising roar. "No, not yet. It's stabilizing." But it wasn't. The bunker lights went out entirely. For one terrifying moment, the only illumination came from the machine, a blinding, otherworldly glow that pulsed like a gigantic heartbeat. And then, a shockwave of force blasted outward, knocking everyone to the ground. Concrete cracked. Frost evaporated. The entire bunker trembled as if the earth itself were recoiling from what had just awakened. The bell slowed. The glow faded. Silence fell. Engineers lay unconscious or dazed on the concrete. Instruments were liquefied. Quartz cylinders dripped strange metallic residue. Kammler rose slowly, brushing dust off his coat. He stared at the machine with something between fear and obsession. What exactly was that? Schauberger wiped blood from his nose and whispered, "Power, Herr Kammler. Power beyond bombs, beyond rockets, beyond anything in this century." He looked back at the bell, eyes filled with dread and pride. "If perfected, it will change the world. Kammler glanced at the trembling engineers, the cracked bunker walls, the scorched metal rails. And if not? Schauberger swallowed hard. Then it will destroy it. Outside, the icy wind howled against the bunker doors. Inside, the bell hummed, quiet, steady, waiting. And the Reich's most secret weapon had only just been awakened. The bunker was still trembling when the scientists dragged the injured technicians away from the machine. Thin trails of smoke curled from melted cables. Frost on the concrete floor hissed where droplets of Serum 525 had splattered, eating tiny pits into the surface as if the liquid itself were alive. Kammler's boots crunched over shattered glass as he stalked toward the main control console. "Report," he snapped. Dr. Schauberger's hands shook as he flipped through scorched papers. His face was pale, eyes wide, not with fear of Kammler, but with fear of what he'd just seen. It reached rotational phase 3. The internal magnetic field spiked above predicted levels. That, he pointed to the cracked ceiling, should not be possible. Kammler clenched his jaw. "What did it do, Doctor?" Schauberger hesitated. Space in the chamber warped, distorted. The bell bent the air like heat over desert sand. But this wasn't temperature. This was field compression. Gravity fluctuation. Kammler stepped closer, voice dropping to a cold whisper. "Are you telling me this device manipulates gravity?" Schauberger swallowed. "Not directly. Not yet. But the principles, her Obergruppenführer, if we refine them, we could develop." He didn't finish. Because one of the engineers, his face white with shock, called out from across the hall. "Sir, look at the clock." Everyone turned. The wall-mounted clock above the blast door was ticking backwards. Backward. Seconds rewinding silently. Technicians froze. A few crossed themselves. One dropped his clipboard. Kammler stared at it, stunned. "What trick is this?" "It's no trick," Schauberger whispered. "It's temporal displacement." The field wasn't contained. Its influence extended beyond the chamber. Time stuttered. Kammler's breath clouded the air. "So the device changes time?" Schauberger shook his head violently. No, not change. Distort. But if it can distort a clock," he turned to the machine, dread seeping into his words. "It could distort living things." As if summoned by that fear, an officer shouted from a side corridor. "Herr Obergruppenführer, the test animals." Kammler strode over, boots echoing sharply. A steel cage sat against the far wall. Inside it, 2 rabbits lay unmoving. Not charred, not torn apart, just wrong. Their bodies were twisted subtly, limbs shifted, fur stiff, eyes glazed with a strange gray film. As if something had pulled at them. As if the world had stretched them imperfectly, then snapped back too late. Schauberger grabbed the bars, horrified. The field touched them. We were nowhere near full power, and yet. Kammler cut him off. "Can the Allies build anything like this?" The scientist didn't hesitate. Absolutely not. That answer was all Kammler needed. His mind raced. He saw plans. He saw factories. He saw a Reich saved from destruction. Then the Führer must be informed. Immediately, he marched toward the exit, barking orders. "Seal this bunker. Double the guards. No one in or out without my authorization." But as he reached the door, Schauberger called after him, voice cracking. "Herr Kammler, we need more time. More testing. The machine is unstable. If we activate it again without proper safeguards." Kammler spun on his heel. The Reich has no time left. He stepped out into the freezing night, breath turning to ice. Behind him, deep in the bunker, Die Glocke pulsed faintly, its quartz tubes twitching with a ghost-like glow, as if the machine understood every word spoken in the room. As if it were waiting for the next test, waiting for more power, waiting for the moment it would either save the Reich or erase everything around it. Snow hammered the forest outside Ohrdruf as Kammler's convoy sped back toward the compound the next morning. The sky was a dull iron gray, clouds sagging low as if the heavens themselves were weighed down by what had happened underground. He hadn't slept. No one in the bunker had. Rumors spread quietly among the SS guards. Whispers of a machine that bent light, cracked concrete, and made clocks run backward. At noon, Kammler summoned the project team to the main hall. Dozens of scientists, some brilliant, some terrified, some both, filed in with clipboards clutched to their chests. Schauberger stood at the front, dark circles under his eyes. Kammler wasted no time. "We activate the bell again. Today. A ripple of panic moved through the room. Herr Obergruppenführer, a physicist, stammered. The test chamber isn't fully repaired. Cooling lines are still unstable. If the field expands again, it will not expand if you control it, Kammler snapped. Schauberger stepped forward, voice tense. You do not understand. This machine is not like your V weapons. It is not a bomb, nor a rocket, nor a tank. It behaves like, he hesitated, struggling for words, like a storm with a mind of its own. Kammler's stare hardened. And you will harness that storm. The Reich demands it. A silence fell. Even the guards looked uneasy, because everyone in that room knew the truth. The Reich was collapsing. Berlin was burning from Allied bombers. The Soviets were thundering in from the east. Hitler was demanding miracles, and Die Glocke was the last miracle left. By late afternoon, the engineers had reconnected melted cables, reinforced the cracked chamber walls, and patched scorched metal rails. The bunker hummed with nervous energy. Guards stood at every doorway. The lights flickered, struggling against the surge of power diverted into the test hall. Inside, Die Glocke waited. Its ceramic tiles gleamed faintly. Its quartz cylinders pulsed like organs beneath metal skin. The strange, viscous serum, 525, sloshed softly with an unnatural glow. Schauberger approached the machine slowly, like a priest approaching an unpredictable god. He placed his hand on the cold metal and whispered something under his breath, half prayer, half warning. Kammler killed the silence. Begin. Red alarm lights spun to life. Sirens wailed. Engineers retreated behind blast shields as power surged through thick cables. The bell began to rotate. Once, twice, then faster. A low hum vibrated through the floor. Air pressure shifted, making ears pop. Frost evaporated from the walls. Sparks crawled up steel beams like white spiders. Rotational phase 1 reached, a technician shouted. The glow intensified. Shadows bent. Reality seemed to ripple like a disturbed pond. Phase 2. Magnetic field rising. Stabilizers failing on coil 3. Kammler slammed his fist on the railing. Hold it steady. Engineers scrambled to adjust dials, sweat pouring despite the cold. Then, the same phenomenon as before. The space around the bell warped. Air bent sharply to the left, as if reality itself had been tugged by invisible hands. Loose bolts vibrated. The metal catwalk shook violently. One guard doubled over, clutching his stomach as if gravity had twisted in his gut. Shut it down, Schauberger yelled. We're losing containment. But Kammler stepped forward, eyes blazing. No, push it. Push it to phase 3. A terrified technician hesitated. Kammler drew his pistol. The lever was thrown. The bell exploded with blinding violet light. The shockwave that followed didn't sound like an explosion. It sounded like the air itself tearing apart. Concrete cracked in a spiderweb pattern beneath their feet. Every metal railing glowed red for a split second. Men screamed as the pressure twisted their equilibrium. The bell lifted. Not by cables. Not by machinery. It rose. A foot off the ground. 2 feet. 3. Floating, tilting slightly, rotating faster, faster, the glow swelling in violent pulses. Papers flew through the air. Tools levitated briefly before slamming into the far wall. A technician's coat lifted off his body as if pulled by a vacuum. Get back, Schauberger shouted. Kammler, transfixed, stepped closer. Herr Kammler, Schauberger roared. If the field peaks again, it could flatten the entire mountain. But Kammler only stared at the levitating machine, his voice trembling with awe and hunger. This is the weapon that will win us the war. And then, the bell's rotation faltered. A metallic scream tore through the chamber. The glow collapsed inward as if sucked into a black well, then blasted outward in a blinding flash. The concrete floor heaved like a living thing. Beams snapped. Men were thrown like rag dolls. Lights burst in cascades of sparks. When the blast finally faded, the bell crashed back onto the cradle, tilted, cracked, hissing. Smoke choked the test hall. Engineers groaned on the floor. Schauberger lay bleeding from the forehead. Kammler rose slowly, coughing, covered in dust. But his eyes were burning. Not with fear. With triumph. It can work, he whispered. It will work. No one else spoke. No one else breathed. Because every scientist in that room realized something Kammler refused to see. The bell was no longer just dangerous. It was uncontrollable. And the next test would push it past its limits. and pushed the Reich past a line it was never meant to cross. Night swallowed the Thuringian hills as the storm rolled in. Thick clouds, freezing wind, and distant thunder echoing across the mountains. At the Ordruff compound, the test hall looked like a wounded beast. Walls cracked, scaffolding twisted, scorch marks smeared across the ceiling. Guards whispered nervously. Engineers refused to enter without orders. The entire facility seemed to hold its breath. And yet, Kammler ordered a third test. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Schauberger staggered into the hall, clutching fresh calculations smeared with pencil marks and blood from the earlier blast. His voice shook as he confronted Kammler in front of the machine. We cannot test again tonight. The fuel chambers are unstable. The power converters are burned out. The bell, he pointed to the giant metal monster, is tearing itself apart. Kammler's answer was quiet, deadly. And the Reich is tearing itself apart. Berlin is collapsing. The Soviets are 100 kilometers away. We test again. Schauberger slammed the papers onto a table. You're trying to force a miracle out of a machine that barely understands its own physics. Kammler stepped forward until their faces were inches apart. A miracle is exactly what the Führer demands. Lightning cracked outside, briefly illuminating the bell's ceramic tiles, still glowing faintly, as if something inside was waiting to wake up again. Schauberger looked at it with the haunted expression of a man staring at a beast he created but could no longer control. As technicians reluctantly powered up the bunker's generators, a faint vibration pulsed through the floor. Kammler reached for the ignition lever. Herr Kammler, Schauberger whispered. If we push it beyond phase 3 again, the field might not collapse inward this time. It might expand. Beyond the chamber. Beyond the bunker. Beyond. Kammler didn't blink. Activated. Red lights screamed to life. Cooling fans roared. Power surged through thick cables that trembled like veins under strain. The bell shuddered. The vortex of Zerum, 525 inside began to churn. Phase 1. Phase 2. Phase 3. The machine screamed as it rotated, faster than ever, bending the very air around it. Engineers shielded their faces. Tools lifted off workbenches. A metal clipboard shot upward like a bullet. It's overloading, someone shouted. The bell's glow brightened from violet to white. A blinding, unnatural white, like staring directly into a dying sun. Schauberger pushed past Kammler. We have to stop it. The magnetic field is breaching. He grabbed the emergency shutoff lever. Kammler knocked his hand away. No. Then, a sound tore through the chamber that no one could describe. Not an explosion. Not thunder. Not metal breaking. It was like hearing the air scream. The bell lifted again, floating 3 feet above the cradle, rotating at impossible speed. Sparks erupted from its core. Beams vibrated. The quartz tubes cracked and sprayed glowing droplets across the room, each drop sizzling through steel like acid. A vortex formed above the machine, a rippling distortion in the air, spinning with the bell. One engineer stared into it and whispered in horror. I can see something on the other side. The vortex pulsed, then collapsed. A shockwave ripped outward, stronger than the earlier blasts, flattening everything. Men slammed against the walls. Concrete shattered. Support beams twisted like soft wire. The entire bunker seemed to jump off its foundation. And then, just as suddenly, silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Dust drifted through the air like falling ash. Kammler staggered to his feet, coughing, blood on his face. Schauberger lay unconscious against a collapsed console. Several engineers weren't moving at all. The bell rested crooked on the floor, smoking, cracked, beaten, its glow finally dead. But something else was wrong. The far wall had changed. A section of reinforced concrete had melted into a smooth, glass-like surface. Not burned, not crumbled, melted, as if softened by a force not seen on Earth. Kammler stared at the warped wall with a mixture of awe and terror. This machine could not be controlled. This machine could not be weaponized safely. This machine could destroy everything. And yet, this, Kammler whispered through clenched teeth, is still the Reich's only hope. But the Reich wouldn't get another chance. Within weeks, Soviet tanks thundered through the region. Kammler vanished under mysterious circumstances. Some claims say suicide, others say escape to Argentina, others that he bargained with the Americans. The bell itself disappeared before Soviet forces reached Ordruff. Some say Kammler ordered it moved. Others say the SS blew the entire bunker sky high. But whatever happened that night, one thing became certain. Germany's secret weapon, the machine meant to rewrite the war in Hitler's favor, never reached the battlefield. It died in a bunker beneath the Thuringian hills, torn apart by its own impossible power. And historians would spend the next 80 years debating what Die Glocke truly was. A failed experiment, a misunderstood prototype, or a technological leap decades ahead of its time.